Hello, friends. It's day 58 of our summer initiative, Summer 66, and we're walking through the 66 books of the canon, the Bible. Our goal is to do it in 66 days, and we are on track. This is day 58. So if any of these videos are meaningful to you, please share with your friends, your neighbors, your family. Today we're talking about Hebrews, and our theme is Jesus, or perfect high priest. Jesus is a perfect high priest. I want you to imagine you are tempted to return to old practices that no longer suit where you are today in life. Or maybe you are tempted to lose heart, or things are really difficult in life and it just, it feels like the center can no longer hold. Paul is writing to the Hebrews and he's encouraging them to, number one, he says, lift up your eyes to Jesus, who the author describes as the perfect eternal high priest, who is the author and the finisher of our faith, who fulfills and surpasses all of the demands of the old covenantal sacrifice. So again, think of being tempted to return to something that no longer serves you, right? So this is kind of the predicate for this letter to the Hebrew community. All right. The recipients of this letter, depending on which theologian you want to read, which historian you want to read, is more than likely Jewish Christians wrestling with whether to stay in the faith amid persecution and pressure from their former Jewish colleagues. Okay, so do you stay in the faith, or do you bring some of the old practices from your old faith into this new faith? The author is going to handle a lot of this as to how you live this new faith in Jesus Christ. All right, so a couple of key verses in the book of Hebrews. Number one is Hebrews 13:8, which says Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Right? So it's an easy verse to remember. Jesus Christ the same yesterday, today, and forever. Hebrews 4:15, it says, we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weaknesses. In other words, Jesus is a high priest who understands exactly what you're going through. He is not above everything you've gone through in life, every pain and every pressure you're facing in life. It says that our high priest Jesus understands what we go through. And so because he understands that, we can run the race with perseverance, keeping our eyes on him. Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1. A little bit of a history here. This letter was written before the destruction, more than likely written before the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem in 70 AD. Hebrews explain Jesus as the ultimate fulfillment of the Old Testament priesthood and sacrifices. And the theology of Hebrews really unfolds the supremacy of Christ. And I want to challenge you to see, if you remember, which book of the Bible also talks about the supremacy of Christ. Colossians. You guys remember that, right? So the supremacy of Christ over angels, over Moses, over the Levitical priesthood, and introduces to us what has come to be known as the new covenant, based on Jesus' once and for all sacrifice. When Jesus offered himself after the sacrifice, there's nothing else you and I can do to add to the finished work of Jesus Christ. All right. So a couple of practical takeaway. It's a call to a kind of faith that endures, a faith that is rooted in the unseen reality of God's promises. So, and one of the reasons I also love Hebrews is Hebrews chapter 11 has what we call the Hall of Fame of faith. So if you want to see people who really, really went through a lot of difficult times and they just trusted in the grace of God and in God's power to hold them up, Hebrews 11, the Hall of Fame of faith. Okay, so practical takeaway: trust Jesus' priestly work to fully cleanse your conscience. That's number one. Number two, perseverance through hardship. Doesn't mean that God has abandoned you. It actually, when you're going through tough time, it actually encourages you to keep your eye on what Hebrews call the cloud of witnesses. Meaning life is like a race, right? You're running this race, and in the bleachers are Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and they're cheering you on, right? Every time you think of giving up in life, you think of just, oh, I'm just going to throw in the towel. These guys are sitting in the bleachers, and gals, and Sarah, and Deborah, and Esther, and Mary, and all of the patriarchs and matriarchs, and every person who's ever lived a life of faith and have died in the Lord, they are cheering you on. So Hebrews says, keep on running. Keep on running. So no matter what your struggles are today, I want you to know that there are people cheering you on, and God's got you.